Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Between the Ears here on Mountaineers Now, a SI Fan Nation channel. And today I'm bringing in former West Virginia running back Eugene Napoleon. Obviously, you've seen him probably everywhere on our site, on our YouTube channel, doing a bunch of different things for us right now and throughout the last few years, too. So, Gene, thanks for coming back on the show. The first time we've done this actually on camera. So, glad for you to be here.
Man, absolutely. Thank you for having me, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the things we're about to talk about.
Yeah, it's about to get a little juicy up in here. We're going to talk about the upcoming season for West Virginia, the expectations for Neal Brown heading into year 4, and we're going to get to that in a second. But first, I want to let everyone know where they can find us. You can find us on Twitter at SI_WVU. You can follow me at Callahan _. And if you want more of Between the Ears, or you want Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon, be sure to find us on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. He's also got a show on his YouTube channel, and that is Napoleon's Corner. You can check that out at Napoleon's Corner. So had to throw that little plug in there real quick. So now let's go ahead and get to it. What you're here to listen to, us debate about where the program is, the state of the West Virginia football program. 17-18. That's the record for Neal Brown through 3 years as the head coach of West Virginia. And Gene, I don't think anybody, you nor I, thought that this would be a quick turnaround. When Neal Brown came in, it wasn't the greatest of situations. There's a lot of guys that transferred out. And you got to think, too, there's also been a pandemic, which greatly affected everything from the recruiting standpoint to just being able to interact with his players and staff like you would normally do. Outside of the pandemic, which was in year 2, by the way, you've got the transfer portal that has really kind of come into play. You've got NIL. So there's been a lot of different factors that have really kind of come into play here in the last 2 to 3 years, all just happened to be at the beginning of his coaching stint here at West Virginia. So 17-18, Gene, I'll ask you this. Through the first 3 years, I know you're not a big grading guy. You're not a big rating or anything like that. But how would you say these first 3 years for Neal Brown has gone at West Virginia?
Listen, to say tough is an understatement only because of the parameters that you just stated. But here's the thing I look at. It's been that with every program and every coach in the country. You know, we can make that same argument for every coach in the country, every program in the country. So I'm not sure if are those tough areas and tough parameters to get around. Of course they are. You know what I mean? It's tough sledding, but it's tough. In other words, it's tough sledding for everybody. So for me to say 3 years, 17-18 record, it's like, that's it. This year is the proving ground year. We have to get it done this year. And reason being, like I just stated, the transfer portal has affected every program in the country, some in a positive way, some in a negative way. But the even ground to that is for everybody. You can't look at it and say it's only affected WVU and Neal Brown and his staff. It's affected everybody equally. Like I said, the takeaways were tremendous. The giveaways, maybe not so much. You're upset with who you lost, but you're real happy with who you get. So it's an even playing ground, right? I think with Neal this year, because of having Virginia Tech and Pitt on this schedule, it adds a lot more pressure to him going into this season than the prior 3 seasons, in my humble opinion. Because if you lose any one of those 2 games, the pressure or the fire under that seat is going to ramp up. It's going to get hot real quick. So he has to, you know, coaches say, well, I'm not worried about that too much. He has to be worried about that, and he should be concerned about that, because a true West Virginia fan, you can't lose to Pitt and you can't lose to Virginia Tech. I'm sorry. I bleed, okay, the WV, right? That's just, it maybe people won't say it. I'm going to say it. We really have to take those 2 games into account, as in all the rest of them. But Virginia Tech and Pitt, it's going to be tough sleddings if we lose one of those games or both of those games.
Oh, 100%. And I think even if you look at the way the schedule looks out too, I mean, you've got Kansas and Towson sandwiched inside of those two games.
Yes.
So, I mean, assuming you take care of business against those two,
Right.
you're setting yourself up to potentially be 4-0 before you get into the thick of the Big 12. So you have to go and at least get one of these two games. But I mean, winning two, just think about this. I don't want to say that two games define a coach or two games define a season, but starting 4-0 and beating two rivals on the road versus going 2-2 and losing to two of those rivals, like that's a huge difference. If you go 4-0 to start the season, number one, you only need two more wins to get bowl eligible, which is
That's right.
essentially all you were last year.
Right.
Okay. And 4-0 is also over halfway to the new mark that he will set for a single season high in wins. So
Right.
I just think you have to. I don't think either one's a must-win game, but in terms of his future, I think it's just a critical part. And like you said, 17 and 18 through 3 years, like everything that he's gone through, I get it. Other schools have gone through it too. He didn't walk into a great situation, but this is the year that it has to start to turn, because if it doesn't turn now, when is it going to turn? Like the last 3 years, you can make the excuses for the pandemic and the transfer portal and the NIL and having some of Holgerson's guys. Year 4, most of those guys transferred out. You know, you're a year or so into the NIL and the transfer portal. You already know what that's going to be like. So there's really no excuses anymore, right? I mean, am I wrong?
No, listen, you're 100% correct and perfectly stated. There are no more excuses. Listen, this is now your roster.
Yeah.
This truly is now your roster of talent, your pool of talent. This is going to be critical in my statement of saying this. When you come into a program and you're in year, let's say after year 2, going into year 3, I'm critical of that to say that's truly your roster, because you've had 2 years to get through the minutia. You have 2 years to get through all of that to really get to what you want offensively, defensively, special teams, all the schemes. Nah. Going into year 4, no. This is definitely a critical turning point for, Coach Brown in this staff. Now, do I believe he can get it done? I do. Do I believe he has the right mixture and chemistry of player / coach, in this program? I do. Do I think the schedule is set up for him to be a little bit on slippery grounds this way? I do. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to unpack here, but I really do believe he has the core talent in a well-versed coaching staff to be up for the task. Now, time will tell.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I don't think starting 4-0 is the end-all be-all for him. But if you look at the schedule, like you said, even after those first 4 games, you've got to go to Texas immediately. Yeah. That's not going to be easy. You've got Oklahoma State, who you haven't beat, I believe, in, 7 years or so? You haven't beat Oklahoma, and there's always a team or two that that they've lost to in years past that they shouldn't. And then you've also got Kansas State, who I think is going to be a lot better than people think this year. So
much better than people think.
There's 4 or 5 teams right there that you could easily lose to. So starting 4-0 is going to be huge for him. And I think it's not just about starting 4-0, it's who you're beating too. And at the end of the year, if you look back and say they're 8-4, but their 4 losses are to Texas and Oklahoma State, and maybe Pitt. I think you could probably live with 8-4, especially you go 1-1 in your rival games. But if you go, if you go 6-6 and you lose both of your rival games, that's not going to sit well, I don't think, with Shane Lyons. Now, I can't read his mind. I don't know exactly where he stands on that. I will say this. It doesn't seem like, or at least I don't get the feeling that Neal Brown is on any sort of hot seat entering the year. Now, I will say this. He can sure as hell coach his way onto the hot seat in the first month of the season.
Well, I'll tell you this, and I've always had a great level of respect for West Virginia and how we handle our business when it comes to our coaches. For the exception of, God bless him, the grave he went, great man, for the exception of how the Bill Stewart situation was handled,
yeah,
West Virginia's always been held in very high regards as to, you're here, you're coaching, like you said. No, wasn't a university that put you mid-season talking about we're going to fire the coach and other, you know what I mean? I respect that. But here's the catch-22, right? So as you laid out the schedule, if you lose to teams in your conference that are middle-of-the-road teams that you should not lose to, that shows, that gives you, that paints the picture to all you need to know about the direction of the program. And this is any program, not just WVU, any program. You can't lose to a middle-of-the-road team in your schedule, like that's on your schedule in your conference. Like you said, it's who you beat or who you lose to. That sets up a totally different discussion because it's telling you that, okay, we continuously lose to an upper echelon team we're right here with. We hadn't beaten them in 7-8 years. Oh, okay. I don't know why, because we've usually, I'm talking about Oklahoma. Yes, I am. We've beaten them years past prior to other coaches being here. So I'm a little bit confused there. Anyway, if you continue to lose to teams underneath that tier, it really puts me in the mind of, okay, maybe we need to go in a different direction. I'm not saying that now. I'm just saying that that's anyone sitting home thinking about the way our schedule was laid out, thinking about the past 3 years, thinking about who we've won and who we've lost to. When you really start to think about it, in my mind's eye, this is a pivotal year for a few different reasons. But again, I'm still drinking the Neal Brown Kool-Aid. I still believe we can get it done. I still believe we could either be 8-4 or 9-3. And I know those are lofty, but that's just my personal belief. I hope for him and I hope for that staff and for our fine university, our players and our program, that we are at least 8-4, 9-3, because then now you're trending upwards with the kind of schedule we have now, again, with the Virginia Tech and Pitt on this current schedule. If we can pull off an 8-4 season with that, and I'll give a split between our rivals, our old rivals, you beat Pitt, you lose to Virginia Tech, or you beat Virginia Tech and you lose to Pitt, which I wouldn't want that. But my point is, I will concede to that if we're 8-4 with that scenario, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think when you look at a lot of the people nationally, whether it's sports books, odds makers, whatever, it seems like the overwhelming feeling is that this is like a 5.5 win team. Now, you can agree or disagree with that, but I will say this. If Neal Brown wins 5 games in 2022, I mean, I think I don't need to even go ahead and say it because I think you already know what should happen at that point. I mean, and people have asked me all summer long, is there a certain number of wins that he has to get to? I don't know. I mean, I'm not Shane Lyons. I don't know the situation.
Right.
To me, if it's 5 or less, he's got to go. If it's 6, to me, that seems like you're just stuck in neutral. You're not making any progress. You look at every year that he's been here after that first year, 6 wins, and it would be 6 wins again. You're not making any progress to me. It's got to be at least 7. That's just my feeling. Do you think 6 wins is enough to keep him in Morgantown?
No, absolutely not. No, 6 wins. If you're a Pop Warner coach and you win 6 wins the first 6 games the first year, 6 games the second year, 6 games the third year, people be looking at you like,
yep.
So I just think, because you know what it is, that's the nature of competitive sport.
Yeah.
The nature of competitive sport and human nature is 6. No, we need at least 8. We need at least, because even at 7, you're like, yeah, well, it's better than 6. But man, that just means you're not quite there yet. And I don't know how much more time within our illustrious program the fans are going to be patient enough with 666. I just don't think that they're going to be patient with another 6-win season. In my humble opinion, no, he has to win at least 8. I mean, that's just me. Like you said, I'm not in Shane Lyons' head. I don't know what he's thinking, but I'm thinking if you're sitting there and you got a big freaking board, your to-do list, I'm sure on that to-do list, it doesn't have 6 circled. No. It may have 8 circled or 9 circled in the win column for WVU this year. And I do go against what the so-called experts say about we're a 5-win team. Listen, West Virginia has never gotten the credit that it's deserved when these so-called experts say, oh, they're only going to win a handful of games. And then you go out and win 9 games. In years past when we did that, no, what was it? 84% of the country had WVU losing to Oklahoma. And we already know what happened with that. No one came back to say, oh my God, they had what a great win. No, it was crickets from the so-called expert gallery.
Yeah, and it was the same thing for the Orange Bowl too, and the Clemson.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's not an unfamiliar position at all for West Virginia, but like we've both said many times here in the last few minutes, 6 seems like it's neutral. You're not making any progress. You're not really taking a step back. But year 4, it's not about staying in neutral or staying where you are in year 4. You need to be climbing that mountain. And Neal Brown has said this a million times, trust the climb. Well, at some point, there's no more trusting, and it's actually taking part of that climb and actually climbing up and not just staying straight on a flat, circle. You got to start ascending. So, I mean,
I don't want to be stuck in the middle of the climb on that mountain.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, we either got it. No, I want to go up. I don't want to go down. So I got you.
And again, if you look at the schedule, I mean, Kansas, Towson, those are 2 wins that you should have. I get that. But if you take those 2 games away and let's say they finish 6-6 and they beat Towson and Kansas, you essentially only beat 4 real football teams. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be too harsh on Kansas and Towson, but you've got to be able to win games against programs that have a certain level of respect.
If you want to go to the next level and where WVU, from our yesteryears to where we are now, current date, you have to win games that are on your schedule and in your conference that are meaningful.
And wins and games that you aren't even expected to win.
You have to. That's part of the growth, right? So for me, and I think for any of my former teammates that that have the same exact feeling about this particular subject matter, yeah, man, we're proud Mountaineers. Heck yeah. So we don't know winning 6 games is not acceptable. Not when the schedule depicts where you could win 8 or 9. I think that's where we are in year 4. And that's just what it is. I mean, again, that is what competitive sports is all about. Now, I'm not expecting to win 6 games. I'm not expecting to win 7 games. For me, 8 or more, we can talk a little bit.
Yeah, you can see a couple of steps going up that mountain if you're going to 8+ wins. So.
We can talk. I done took 2 more, 3 more, 4 more steps on that mountain if we got 8 wins this year.
If not, you're essentially just getting on the chin up bar and just hanging there.
Bruh,
you're not doing it. So
if we win 6 games this year, I don't know. I might just let go of the whole mountain, the whole night.
At some point, you got to see the results. And if not, people are going to lose faith. And that's not just the fan base. You're going to see it within the program too. So
absolutely,
we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for today's show of Between the Ears. Coming up next here on our YouTube channel and here on our site at Mountaineers Now. That's right. Eugene's show, Relatively Sports. We'll have a new episode of that coming out on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Next Between Ears show will be next Wednesday at 6, and then also on Friday. Me and Gene will be back here actually together doing our walkthrough game day show for the 3rd season. We'll get that show kicked off, I believe, the week before the Pitt game. We'll do a mini condensed version of a season preview, and then also kind of talk a little bit about Pitt before the Backyard Brawl gets underway the following week. And then we'll obviously have that preview for that game the week of the game. So, Gene, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you and your shows at.
Listen, you already know. Well, your wonderful platform, along with Sports Illustrated, which I totally, I'm stoked to be part of, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Absolutely. So, as you know, on Wednesdays we do have Napoleon's Corner, and on Tuesdays we do have Relatively Sports. I want to plug my up and coming guest for this up and coming Tuesday, which is none other than former NFL wide receiver Donald Jones. He played with the Bills. He had played with New England. He and his son, they're going to dawn my show, and I'm Relatively Sports this Tuesday, which I'm really excited about. Donald is a tremendous person. You're going to hear a lot about his career, and his son is one of the top young prospects in the entire state of New Jersey, which I'm really excited to interview him as well. So that's going to be on Relatively Sports this upcoming Tuesday, and I can't wait. We're looking forward to it.
There you go. So don't miss out. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at @SI_WVU to get the notifications that that video has been released. Again, that'll be Tuesday at 6 o'clock. For Eugene Napoleon, I'm Skylar Callan. We'll see you back here on the Between the Ears show next Wednesday.